category, I think probably the biggest highlight on there is we dropped the ambulance transfer pay 5,000. That's been constantly going down because of Medivac taking most of the transfers. So there's no sense carrying that kind of money in the budget anymore. So we took another 5,000 off of that. The rest is really, a lot of it is out of our control. That's all the FICA and overtime pay and things like that. So on the second page, you can see building maintenance we dropped 3,000 out of. That's a direct result of the new addition onto the station. We feel there's not going to be as much maintenance, obviously, with that, so we took some money off of that budget. 13,000 was an addition onto the ambulance supplies. That's probably a big addition to it. Since COVID, the price of doing business has gone up dramatically. For example, a case of gloves pre-COVID was about $16. A case of gloves right now is like $68. A simple N95 mask used to cost us about 49 cents. Now they're about $4.89. So the cost of ambulance supplies obviously went up quite a bit. The next one is training and education. You'll see a jump there. It was dropped quite dramatically last year because of the COVID. That's all we're asking is there's some trainings that our members go to. We try to get them to at least annually or once every 2 years. Big trainings like FDIC, which is Fire Department Instructors Conference. It's a great instruction conference where our members can go and learn all the new techniques, everything that's new in service. Also, a lot of the EMS ones that guys will get some of their continuing ed credits from, like WEMSA, Wisconsin EMS Association. So we're trying to maybe make up for that a little bit and get some guys into that. We also this year started and are going to try to finish next year. All our officers are going through what's called Blue Card training. It's a certification of officers, the ones that have gone through it, and myself. This is a tremendous advantage to having these guys, and we can do it online, but there is a little bit of a cost to it. So it brings us up, in recognition with all the great officers or battalion chiefs across the nation. It's actually put on by one of probably the most noted officers, Alan Brunacini. So it's great training for our officers, and I think it's bringing us into another level of commitment. So educational reimbursement, that's if somebody wants to go back to college. We always canvass the year before, and from the people that we had that are going to go back, we've taken $2,500 off because we know that we've only got, I think, one person that is interested next year. So doesn't mean that in the future it might not be somebody else interested, but why carry that if we're not going to have anybody using it? So ambulance vehicles, there's a decrease of $7,500. We just took delivery of a brand new ambulance we put in service last week. So we feel like because we've got two frontline ones that are pretty decent right now, our costs for those are going to go down. Our outlay, the budget for the fire department outlay, correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, but I think probably the biggest one in there is a vehicle this year to replace what's we call our U6. Actually, it's named Trusty Rusty because it's in pretty poor shape. So our division chief at EMS uses that. He's active in the EMS response. He has to go on calls and do like QA calls and do quality assurance on members while they're out in the field. He also uses that. He'll go and jump calls because we might be shorthanded or we got 2 ambulances out. So he really needs a vehicle we can trust and that has the ability to respond emergent. So if you look down the fire department replacement fund, ambulances, again, we just took delivery of that one, so that decreased by $255,000. We just got done with our DOT checks, and we've got a pretty good bill of health so far right now from Red Power. That's why you see a decrease in the fire vehicles there. And fire equipment, we see a need for less in that category next year. We don't project anything that we have on the docket that we're going to have to. Sometimes you'll see that fluctuate when it comes time to do hydro tests on all our SCBAs and all our oxygen bottles and things like that, but we have nothing like that projected next year, so that's why that line item is decreased in there. I think that was about the highlights. We had an item in the budget for filling our 11th tier. I think we'll see in the closed session where we've come to an agreement on that one, or I think that we can show the need for that. So all in all, I think our budget is very well managed to the point that we aren't really asking for anything more than what we're going to need. So, and I'd be willing to answer any questions that you have.
Question by Jake?
This first one's for Tim. Do we have anything on the fire EMS revenue that they generate in the budget, or that stands separate?
Right, yeah, if you, the budget summary, the executive budget summary. Let's see. If you go to page 12, that's where we show, in summary form, the expenditures, but then also the revenues that go to fund these expenditures. So the EMS portion of the budget, which accounts for approximately 28% of the total department budget, it's funded through property taxes and then obviously the ambulance revenue that's generated from the calls.
Thank you. And then in regards to vehicle replacement, I know there's been some discussions about a possible ladder truck replacement in the future. Is that something we're going to take up as a future issue in the capital improvement plan? And that's why this number is a little lower, you would say, compared to needing to replace a large item like that?
For the vehicle replacement for fire vehicles, historically, we've always put almost $37,000 away for that each year to fund some of those things. And mostly that is to fund some of the smaller type pieces of equipment. Obviously, a ladder truck is a larger ticket item. But if you see on the back, you'll see where the fire vehicles, where the estimated balance right now is $140,000. Then we put into the annual budgeted amount, and then you'll see for the plan 2020 purchase, the 34, leaving a balance at the end of next fiscal year of $143,000 approximately. But with something like the size of a ladder truck, that will have to be addressed, in a capital improvement plan and how we finance that, because obviously we don't have the flexibility in the property tax levy with levy limits to add more to that account that would significantly offset what the cost of the ladder truck would be.
And then this question is in regards to, you mentioned earlier, we do have trustee Rusty, and it is needed sometimes as we're short-handed or we have 2 ambulances out. So would you say that our staffing is appropriate, but if there is times we get in a crunch in terms of vehicles? Or what brings the you mentioned short-handed, or we got 2 ambulances out?
Well, there's times actually we'll have 3 or 4 ambulances out. There's been at least a half a dozen times last year that the chief and I were on the 4th ambulance. We were the only guys left in the station. So it does happen. I mean, especially if you get in summertime when we're busy. There's times when the whole staff is out. That includes the chief and I on top of the minimum staffing of 8. So there are times that we are out. So can we use more people? Absolutely, we can always use more people. I mean, I'm not going to say we can't. There's departments around us that are doing less runs than we are with more people than we are. So that there's definitely a need for more people. I'll be the first to tell you that, but I understand the process of justifying it. I think when we move to closed session, this will become maybe a clearer picture and help to define that. So with regards to replacements, over the last year, a year ago, Scott put me on to putting together a 20-year projection of vehicles and fire equipment that are like costly, and I have got that, and I'm gonna get that to Tim. It projects out when when the ladder truck should be replaced, projects out when the next engines, when the ambulances are to be replaced, our staff vehicles. I think it would give Tim and the Property and Finance and Property Committee at least a idea of, you know, when we're looking at it. Does that mean that we're gonna get there and maybe we don't need to replace it? No, we might be able to push it back. We pushed the ladder truck back twice already. But I'm gonna tell you that it's getting to the end of its life. We gave it, took it to Red Power this year and told them at the DOT inspections, give us a time estimate, and that's what's in this projection as to when they say we should replace it, so. And we did that with all the fire equipment and the bigger stuff we're talking about, like things that cost maybe $5,000 or $10,000. Replacement of our cascade system that puts the pressurized air in our SCBA tanks, things like that. That's all on a projected schedule now, and I'll be giving that to Tim in the very near future here, so maybe that'll help with that decision making.
Thank you. So this proposed budget as is sufficient for 2022, but what you're saying is going forward, there is some equipment issues for sure, possibly staffing that could be addressed, but this is not, this budget will give us a good level of service to our residents for 2022.
Yep, I would support that, the way it's presented here, as this will give us a good 2022 budget, absolutely. Now, with regards to what we're going to discuss in closed session, we'll change some of that, but again, that'll be a clear picture when we talk about that.
Thank you. I asked the question just as we do have an older population. We are still dealing with COVID and other issues in the area, such as the opioid epidemic. I'm not sure how often you guys respond to those, but I'm sure it's somewhat often. I just want to make sure that as the budget hasn't changed that much from last year, we do have sufficient coverage for all those needs.
Jay?
In your operating expenditures, you've got physicals. Is that something above and beyond a normal physical?
Yeah, we're required because we're a hazmat team for the state to supply a hazmat physical. And that's pretty much outlined in statute on it. So I will tell you this is, last week I was at North Central Fire Chiefs meeting. We meet once a month. And I think I found a different vendor we can use that will dramatically decrease that amount. I've given that name of that person to Ryan Hartman. He was going to investigate and check into it before, obviously, we move forward with it. But I think it could drop our cost of that over 60%, from what I'm hearing from the chiefs that are using it. And they're very happy with the type of physical they're getting, too. They said it's very, very extensive. Includes everything that needs to be done, pulmonary function, hearing, EKGs, everything that has to be done by the statute. So hopefully we found something that can ease that financial burden also. So.
Anybody else with a question or comment? Oh,
Yeah, so
Jake?
what you just spoke on, are we able to make that change for 2022?
Make that change as far as the,
The vendor that would cost us 40% less for the,
I guess when I gave that to Ryan as human resources, just to get the okay, he was going to look into it. I just found that out this week, so I mean, I'm sure he's going to need a little time to. It's actually going to decrease it, so I mean, the money's in there for it. And correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, that can roll over at the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, if we have a specific purpose where we didn't, we go through that exercise each year for some reason, if, a budget wasn't expended, but we anticipate doing it in the next fiscal year, we've carried that forward through resolution.
excellent. Yeah, I was just wondering, because we do still have a couple months, and if we could make that switch, keep the money in the budget, but be able to make the switch to not use it all.
all right. Well, if there's nothing else, thank you for appearing before us, and on the budget, on this part of the, our agenda anyway this evening. And we can go to our item number 3, again, for the viewing public. I guess before we get to that, we are meeting on Thursday night again at 4:30 to go over budget items, so tune back in for that. For this, we're going to item number 3 this evening. The committee may vote to go into closed session under Section 19.85, Parent 1, Parent E of the Wisconsin statutes, which reads, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. In closed session, the committee will, A, discuss negotiations and strategy regarding the intergovernmental agreements with the municipalities for the provision of ambulance services to those municipalities. B, discuss emergency medical service billing services contracts. And the committee will adjourn in closed session from that. Committee,
I'll make a motion to go into closed session.
motion is set. Oh, I guess roll call vote. Jake? Tom, aye. With that, we'll go into closed session, everybody.